Hey guys, it's Friday, June the 6th, 2025. I know a lot of folks will be observing Pentecost on Sunday, June the 8th. But I wanted to come on and ask a quick question. This won't be a long video, but I do believe there are clues left to us in Scripture about certain things. One of the examples I've given before is that there was a solar eclipse on the day that our Messiah was crucified, which we know was in the middle of the first month. All right, so yes, that could have been divine intervention. The Father could have put his hand over the Son, but historically and scientifically, there has never been a solar eclipse when the moon was in the full phase. It's always been when the moon was in the dark phase. So if that solar eclipse was one that was based on the phase of the moon and the timing of the crucifixion, of course, then the moon would have to have been full on the first day of the month in order for the moon to be dark in the middle of the month. All right, so a solar eclipse happening in the middle of the month when the moon is full is unheard of, unless, of course, it was divine intervention. But that's a clue that I use to try to determine when what phase the moon is in at the start of the month. And that's one reason why I look at the full moon as the first day of the month and the dark moon in the middle. Okay, that clue is just one of the clues I'm referencing. This clue about when Pentecost had fully come. Those words fully come are a clue to let us know that there is a process to this, okay? And the new wine is a major clue about the timing of that process. So if you look, and I've got two different versions here. This is the completed Jewish Bible, and this is the King James bold print. This is the completed Jewish Bible, Leviticus 23, 15 through 16. From the day after the day of rest, that is, from the day you bring the sheaf for waving, you're to count 7 full weeks, until the day after the 7th week. There's a semicolon there. You are to count 50 days. Okay, so there's just a colon right here after count 7 full weeks until the day after the seventh week. And then a semicolon. You are to count, and I'm going to include my own words here, an additional 50 days. Okay, now let's look at the King James Version. And you shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Until the morrow after the 7th Sabbath shall you number 50 days. So it could be read and understood that there are 2 50-day counts. One is the Feast of Weeks of the completed Sabbaths, 7 completed Sabbaths, and then an additional 50 days. But what they're doing in our modern observance is that they're taking the word Pentecost, which is the Greek pente, means 50. And they're observing Pentecost 50 days too soon. And I say that because of this clue of the new wine. If you know anyone that is a wine harvester or a grape harvester, they will tell you that grapes are not harvested until end of summer, early fall. Around July, August is where grapes are harvested on our agricultural calendar here in this hemisphere. Southern hemisphere is a different story, but that is the new wine is only made from that year's grape harvest. It's just for a few days where it's the most fermented, and then it begins to mellow out, and the process of becoming old wine or aged wine is underway. But the new wine is only a reference to that year's harvest. Okay, so if you only count 50 days from Passover, that brings you to the first week of June. Grapes aren't even in a harvestable state at that point. But if you count an additional 50 days that Leviticus 23 could possibly be alluding to, then it makes sense why the disciples were accused of being drunk on new wine. Because not only do you have to harvest the grapes, but you have to start the fermenting process to get the new wine. And that could be a week, 2 weeks, a month after the grapes are harvested. I'm not sure. I've never harvested grapes or made wine, but some of you might have made wine before, and you know that there's this fermentation process. And new wine, again, is only a reference to that year's harvest. So when Pentecost had fully come, the new wine was part of why they mocked them. Okay, so these two clues go hand in hand, I believe. And so I'm just asking this question. If you guys see that fully come reference in Acts 2 and the new wine reference in Acts 2:13, then is the observance of Pentecost too soon? Now, if you go Google or do some research on when the Feast of Weeks was changed to the name Pentecost, you'll learn a couple of things about the fact that it was called Feast of Weeks from the time of Moses on forward. But it was around the Second Temple period when the Hellenistic Jews, those that had been Hellenized through the Greek pagan observances, began to call it Pentecost. And a lot of deception was woven into the fabric, if you will, around that time of the Second Temple period when Herod was appointing the false high priests. The Judaism became Hellenistic, and a lot of practices through even just the writing of the Talmud that was done during that Second Temple period from Babylonian practices was incorporated. Look into this, guys. Pray about this. I just want you to see that I believe these are two big clues in Acts 2, that you don't use the words fully come in reference to Pentecost unless there is a longer process that must be incorporated. And it's not just 50 days, but it's the 7 completed Sabbaths and then 50 days. That's my understanding, but don't take my word for anything, guys. Y'all pray about this. Ask the Father if this is a clue. And if he reveals to you that it is, please come in the comments and share it with me and let me know what he's shown you. All right? Otherwise, we got another 50-day count before we reach the fully come Pentecost that's referenced in Acts 2. So I thank you all for listening. Be blessed. Ask the Father to confirm any of this, and then let me know. And thanks for listening. Have a great evening.